Today, I'm speaking with Ashlyn Harris. She's the goalkeeper for the United States Women's National Soccer Team and Orlando Pride in the National Women's Soccer League. She's also a FIFA Women's World Cup champion. Ashlyn, I hear you're feeling a little under the weather, so I especially appreciate you taking the time. And I'll just start off. Do you got any sort of ritual or anything that you do to get rid of a cold? Because somebody like you has got to be ready to play and go at any minute.
Yeah, I know. We've been traveling quite a bit, so I think the travel's gotten to me a little bit. But no, honestly, I actually just try to sweat it all out. Here in Orlando, it's really hot, so I'm fully covered, and I'm just trying to sweat all this yucky crap out of my body at this point.
Well, there's been some great news for women's soccer, and in particular, the league that you play in. You know, the new deal with A&E Networks, it's a joint venture, I'm sure as you know, between the Walt Disney Company and Hearst, and they've taken an equity stake in the National Women's Soccer League, and more important, the two are going to launch a joint venture, NWSL Media, which is going to oversee the league's global broadcast and sponsorship rights, production of league game telecasts, as well as live streaming and digital platforms. And I know as someone who has one child, a 10-year-old girl who loves soccer. She's so excited about being able to see more women's soccer, especially, at that age, everything is streaming. She's got her iPad out and she's always checking out women's soccer on her iPad. What do you think this deal means for women's soccer?
Well, I think it just kind of stems from the growth, right? So if you bring it back to just the basics, the fact that something or a company like this even wants to invest is a huge sign. And it's a sign that we're going somewhere and we're going in the right direction. So, for me, I've, played in prior leagues and I've been around for quite some time now. And, I really think this time it's being done right. And I think companies are looking at that wanting to be on board, right? So they want to be on board. They want to continue the growth. And a lot of these companies are backed by females. And that's so special because they're continuing to push the growth of women in sports. So it's a really exciting time for us, and it's a great feeling to feel wanted and invested in, and that, at some point this is going to be, big globally. I mean, there's so many great things that are coming out of this, and it's only been a short amount of time.
Yeah, the ESPN and the Disney, and I mean, they have such a global reach. And soccer, of course, we always seem like we're the last country to get interested in soccer. It's so popular throughout the world. And in particular, I feel like women's soccer has for years taken a backseat to men's soccer, whether you're talking about airtime or streaming time and coverage it gets on TV. Is there a big buzz among the players in the league that this is sort of a breakthrough moment for women's soccer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes with a lot of responsibility as well. We have to put out a really good product so people continue to come back and want to keep watching and want to continue to invest. So it is a great feeling, but we take this responsibility quite serious, and we know that, if people are wanting to put their money into us, we got to also perform, and we got to make sure people are coming back and people are wanting to continue to watch the games on TV and get the ratings up. I mean, those are important aspects of what we're doing as well.
Do you think Lifetime is going to, or maybe they have already, actually asked some of the players like yourself or others, or maybe even some of the other sort of women who help blaze the path like Mia Hamm, what will it mean to have a good production? What goes into a good production? And by that, I sort of also mean social media, somebody like yourself with so many followers on Twitter, for example. I'm hoping they get some of your input.
Well, I think, Lifetime and A&E has done such a great job of doing a lot of stuff before the season. We've done a ton of sound bites. We've done a ton of photo shoots. So they're really pushing it. If you turn on Lifetime, you'll constantly see the commercials. They're pushing a bunch of content on social media, and I mean, it's been professional, and I've been really, really impressed. They are definitely in this, and they are committed. And constantly when we have games on TV, they have camera crews coming in early, doing stories, doing early sound bites. They're 100% in this, and you can see the commitment that they have to make this successful. And I think that that's important to note, because sometimes it's a charitable thing, but for them it's not. They want this to be successful. They want this to be profitable, and they're investing a lot of not only money but time.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I found the best way for you to buy business travel. It's upside.com. And if you're not a business traveler, you know someone who is. You have to tell them about Upside. At Upside, you save money on travel and you get an Amazon gift card worth hundreds of dollars every time. Here's how they do it. Upside bundles your flights and hotel together for one low price. Bundling saves a ton of money, especially on business travel. So they give you an Amazon gift card. Your company saves money and you still keep all your miles. And right now, when you use code Forbes, you're guaranteed a free $100 Amazon gift card your first time. The code Forbes gets you a guaranteed $100 Amazon gift card. That's upside.com. Minimum purchase required. See site for complete details. Going through the lens of your career, when this deal was announced and you look at where women's soccer, how far it's come, did you sort of have a flashback going back to, let's say, when you first started playing soccer, all the things you went through, and seeing this as a moment where, yes, you've been a national champion, you're nationally known as a star, but this is sort of like a point where all of that is really paying off for the betterment of women's soccer?
Yeah, I think, our jobs become almost more touchable in a weird way for children. I think when I was growing up, I never got to turn the TV on. Even now, very rarely do you turn on the TV and you get to see, female athletes and role models like constantly on the networks. It just doesn't happen that much. And I think when young girls are, having to make a choice of a successful career or academics or sports, I think if they can see how professional and how that this is a career and it's a good one, I think more people are going to be willing to do it, and more women are going to be continuing to follow their dreams. I think at some point, a lot of these females have to make a choice where they have to get a real job, or, and I that makes me sad, because now that they can see us on TV, and now that they can see, that we were world champions, and that all these great things come from it, and it's such an exciting time, I think that really reflects on our youth. And to me, that's the most exciting thing.
Did you always want to be a goalkeeper?
I've been a goalkeeper since, probably 8 years old, because I played with boys until I was 15, and they were just much faster than me. So I played in goal forever. How
do I convince my daughter when she plays? She's always like, I don't want to be goalie. I don't want to be goalie. And I'm like, you got to try all the positions, because you don't know really, what you're going to like the most, what you're going to be perhaps best at. How do I convince her, or should I even try to give goalie a shot?
No, honestly, it's a mentality thing, and you'll have a group of young girls who are around, and you'll be able to point out who will be best suitable for the position, who's not scared to get hurt, who's not scared to jump on the floor and dive into people's feet. You got to be a little different, right, to play in goal and do the things we do every single day and throw ourselves on the ground. So, if someone's not into it, I definitely wouldn't force them, because you're not setting them up for success. But someone who's willing to get their hands a little dirty, and who, their mentality is just I'll run through a brick wall for anyone. I think those are usually the ones that stick.
What's your thought process right now on concussions? Particularly, there's been a lot written about whether or not, especially artificial turf, causes concussions or more severe injuries than natural grass, and particularly for goalies like yourself.
I am not. I would hate to answer anything that I'm not like 100% sure on. I'm not very educated in that department. But what I will tell you is this: we have a lot of protocols now that we did not. We definitely did in the past didn't have. We're taking all types of scans before season, and it's all different memory and shapes, and it's all that cognitive. I'm not too familiar with it. I don't know what it does, but I take a ton of tests at the beginning of the year, and any time that there's an injury or there's a field side impact test, and then if you're not able to go, you go inside and you have to take a computerized test and then be seen by a physician. You didn't used to have to do any of that kind of stuff. So I'm very happy, because I do think it's a serious issue. So I'm happy that they're taking the steps that are needed to not just throw people back into games, and that they actually have some type of protocol that eases people back into it. But I don't know statistically about anything with turf or grass, or, nowadays young kids aren't allowed to head the ball because their brain's still developing. When I was young, you could kind of do whatever. But I see that they're taking the steps that clearly are necessary to protect people.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Small businesses are the heart of our communities. They're the places we could not live without. Whether you're looking to create a website for your business or a personal blog, you'll make a big impact when you build your site on WordPress.com. Even if you don't have experience building a website, WordPress.com can guide you through the process. You'll get built-in social sharing. And if you're on WordPress.com, you'll immediately have a leg up on everyone else when it comes to search engine optimization. On WordPress.com, you get support 24/7. Come see why more websites run on WordPress than any other platform. Get started today with 15% off any new plan purchase. Go to WordPress.com/Forbes to create your website and find the membership plan that's right for you. That's WordPress.com/Forbes for 15% off your brand new website. WordPress.com/Forbes. I'm looking at some of the things you've been doing and have done. You're very big in connecting with fans. It seems like even though you're not mandated to, you're always signing autographs, sometimes for hours. And it brought back memories when I was reading this about you. When I was a kid, there was a great hockey player, Bobby Hull. And he was sort of, in the 60s, the ambassador of the NHL, which was trying to grow at that time. It was really a sport then in Canada and in the northeast of the U.S. And he used to stay for hours and make his teammates wait on the bus before they left the city to head to the airport. He'd be signing autograph after autograph. Do you feel, do you feel that this is part of brand building on your end? Is it something that you just do, that you sort of were brought up to understand for whatever reason that this is something you're supposed to do?
Yeah, I think that everyone has some type of calling, and like for me, it's just connecting with people is something that I've really just come to love. And I always say this, and to me, I don't care how much I accomplish in my career. To me, the most important thing is how much I can impact people and change their life, and I think I think we need more people like that in this world. Like I don't think selfishly. I think, how can I help someone else? And that's partly how I've been raised, and what I've seen in my life. I'm always constantly, and I love to take adventures and open my eyes and see the world and share my scars, and I'm very open with my fans. And I don't think it's easy, and I don't think it's for everyone, but I think people will remember how you make them feel. And a lot of these people have supported me when I had nothing. And I think it's a responsibility to be a good person and be a good role model, and really take the time to inspire the next generation. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with the job, and I think most people take that serious, and some people it's just not for them, and that's okay too, and they might inspire in different ways.
You also seem to be someone who's really in touch with your emotions and not afraid to put those emotions and stick them on, and put them on Twitter. I've looked at some of the things. It's almost like you're trying to rev up your teammates and stuff with some of your postings. Was that something that you've kind of developed and thought of yourself over the years, or did you see other players do it?
No, I don't think anyone's perfect by any means. I think, sometimes my emotions can get the best of me, and at the end of the day, I'm human, and this sport is what is my job, and it's what puts food on the table, and I'm very serious about it. I'm not content showing up every day just saying I'm a professional athlete. I think there's a unique balance that separates the great from good, and I focus every day on how can I be great. I don't want to be good. Good's not enough for me, and sometimes you'll sense that in my press conferences, or you'll sense I want to win at all costs. I don't want to settle for anything. For me, my mentality, this is how I've been branded since I was a kid. Anytime I accomplish anything, I don't even take time to enjoy it, because it's like, what's next for me? Constantly, I'm moving forward. What's next? I don't take time to pat myself on the back or stay just hovering in the same place. I constantly want to push myself. I constantly want to be uncomfortable. And I like to hold that accountability to other people around me. And especially, when it comes to my team, I demand a lot. I demand a lot out of myself. I demand a lot out of the people around me. And if they're not living up to the standard, or I'm not, I expect, people to tell me, and I expect to tell others. So that's just the way I lead. That's the way I tick, and it's good for some people, maybe not good for others. It's misunderstood for some people, and some people get it. It honestly just depends what kind of person you are and what revs your engine. You know what I mean?
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. The smart new way to buy business travel is Upside.com. You save money and get a free Amazon gift card every trip you buy. Use the code Forbes, and you're guaranteed at least a $100 gift card your first time using Upside. Save big on travel and get a big gift card. Upside.com. Minimum purchase required. See site for complete details. When did you first realize, or at least start to think to yourself that, you know what, I really can be a special kind of player?
It's hard. I don't know, because every day I just show up and I do me. I don't try to be anyone else. I know what it takes to be the best. I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like to fall short, and I just try to take my experiences and keep moving forward, and keep just sharing, and I'm a big sharer. If I go through something in my life, I think it's really selfish not to share that with someone in case they might have to go through it. Does that make sense? Like, that's how I live my life. Like, if I've been through something, I want to make sure people know my mistakes, and I think that's an important way to live life. If you share your scars a little bit more, maybe you save somebody else.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I'd like to take that a step further. I believe there's going to be a lot of women listening to this, and a lot of them aspiring soccer players. You mentioned losing everything. What were your lows, and how did you fight through them?
I mean, if you play a career in professional sports, you're going to have a lot of disappointments. I mean, that's life, right? That's life in general. I have torn both of my ACLs back to back. I've been out for 3 years at a time. I've gone through extremely bad injuries where there were days I woke up wanting to quit and give up. I have dealt with personal, issues where it's hard some mornings to get out of bed and continue, pushing on or continue fighting through this type of lifestyle that's constantly just people try to rip you down every chance they get, flip your words every chance they get. That's part of the job. A lot of people are critical in this world. A lot of people live behind iPads and computers, and there's a lot of negativity out there, and it's difficult. For anyone who says it's not, they're lying. So I mean, I've made the World Cup team, and then I was cut from the Olympic team. I mean, you name it. This is professional sports. 1 minute you're at the top of your game, like nothing can be bothered, nothing can distract your incline to the mountain, and then all of a sudden, boom, it gets taken right out from underneath you. And it's, how do you deal with that? How do you rise again? How do you create a different path that, maybe the one you were seeking isn't working out for you anymore? I mean, all these obstacles come up, and that's life, that's sport, that's relationship. I mean, no matter what.
About 10 years ago, I mean, you had I think it was a torn labrum in your right hip, which occurred during a goal kick. Yet you did not miss any games, I don't believe, following that, and you started using your left leg. I mean,
yeah.
Where does that come from?
Oh, man, I don't know. It's just, I've been like that since I was a kid. I've been a fighter since I was a kid. My brain ticks different than most, and I don't have the answers. That's the funny thing. A lot of people ask, like, how did you get this type of mentality? I don't know. I always had these conversations with my college coach, Anson Dorrance, and we always talked about, do you think leaders are born leaders? Are they inherent, or do they learn over their lifespan how to lead? And it's funny, I don't know. I feel like I was born a certain way, and I just feel like no matter what happens, nothing holds me down. It's weird. I have no explanation or why. It's just this who I am.
Hey, have you heard about that great new podcast called Fan Club? It's a short series that explores why we love what we love. In each episode, you're going to hear amazing, brilliant people across the pop culture landscape. There's musicians, artists, fashion designers, chefs, even scientists, all talking about how their work is being experienced today and how they think it'll be experienced in the future. So don't miss it. Make sure you subscribe to Fan Club now at vbyviacom.com/fanclub or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Every small business wants to find their customer base. Now your customers can find you too when you create a website on WordPress.com. You see, WordPress has hundreds of customized themes just to get you started. You just pick a template and then you can make it your own. Plus, they have 24/7 support when you need it, so you can get back to business. Come see why more websites run on WordPress than any other platform. Go to WordPress.com/Forbes, and you'll get 15% off your website today. That's WordPress.com/Forbes.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This week on All of the Above with Norman Lear, Veep star Julia Louis-Dreyfus sits down with Norman and Paul.
Well, there wasn't a script when I was first talking to HBO about it. There was a concept, and my agent had said to me, listen, they're developing this thing at HBO about an unhappy vice president, an unhappy female vice president. And I thought to myself, well, I got to get in on this action because it's gold, and it's so amazing that nobody's done it before.
Listen today on the Podcast One app or subscribe at Apple Podcasts or on podcastone.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Braintree. If you think that your payment system exists solely for the purpose of transferring money from a customer's wallet to yours, think again. Braintree. Rethink payments. Learn more at braintreepayments.com/Forbes. I go through and I'm looking at, all the different teams you've played with and some in Germany, Sweden, different teams in the United States. How would you describe how playing on some of these teams, especially outside the U.S., have helped shape your career and brought you to the point where you are today as a talent, but also as a person?
Just like I said before, I like to put myself in situations where I'm uncomfortable. And I think there's a really great, I think there's a lot of growth that stems from that uncomfortable bubble, right? So I always tell people, everyone's like, oh, you live life on the edge. Well, I don't really live life on the edge. I am the edge. And I want to constantly put myself in uncomfortable situations where no one speaks the same language. How am I going to learn to communicate? I'm a goalkeeper. That's my job, is to communicate. I have 10 players in front of me who don't speak English. Like, how am I going to make this work? I love challenges. I thrive in challenges. I want to be in all different types. Everything to me, and this is maybe different than the normal Joe, but everything in my brain is a competition. If I'm walking and someone starts walking faster than me, I start walking faster than them. Sounds crazy, right? But that is the way I'm wired. Competition is everything to me. And I can't have a kosher, easy game of ping pong. I have to win, or I am like really angry, and I'm not even a good ping pong player.
They've said the same thing. I've heard people talk about athletes like Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson, for example, and they say, you know what, you get into a card game on a plane ride back from a game with one of those guys, and it's like, they want to keep playing until they win. It doesn't matter what they're doing, but they want to win. Is that the way you are?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. It's just the way I live. I eat, breathe, sleep, dream about competing, and it's been like that for my whole life.
What do you want to do outside of soccer in terms of, perhaps other businesses or sponsorships? So many athletes now are getting into, whether it be other media companies or streaming, or some have even gotten into apparel deals. Does any of that interest you?
Yeah, I'm I love fashion. I love designing. I love self-expression. So that's the fashion world is definitely something that intrigues me, and designing, and eventually tapping into that as much as I can. I've done a little bit in the industry, but not very much. But that's something that I enjoy doing. But I love speaking. I'm a big supporter of addiction, depression, suicide, self-harm, all those heavy topics that people aren't willing to really talk about. I value the youth, and I think the youth live in a really, really tough world these days with social media and bullying and all these things. So as much as I can do for them, to make them, feel valued and important and beautiful and loved, that's important to me. And that's always been my passion, is to help other people. So there's a lot of different things I want to do. And, I definitely tap into those avenues as much as I can when I get the time.
I find that really interesting. You're mentioning helping people with addiction, and because for me it's personal. I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict myself, and for me, I guess maybe it's about 16 years of sobriety for me now. So
yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, one day at a time.
Absolutely.
Today's just one more day. So I got to ask you though, what brought about your interest in that?
I think addiction's all around us. I think in some way or shape or form we've been affected. Either we've abused ourselves, or we've had someone close to us. We've seen people slip and struggle, and I've had friends take their lives. I've been through all the different elements of it, and I think too easily a lot of people feel a lot of regret, like, hey, I could have done something more. I saw the signs, but I didn't say anything. Like, I should have asked how they're doing. I think we're raised to kind of not talk about these heavy topics that, should be kept between the family, or, I can't tell someone how I feel because they might judge me or shun me out of this group, and I just want to belong and fit in. And this is where, like, I really love gravitating towards young kids who, maybe have these thoughts and are not, they haven't lived enough or experienced enough that knowing it's going to pass and it's going to be okay. And I don't know, I've experienced it all in my life. It's affected me personally, and I don't know, I really, really have a deep connection to it, and I want to help people, and I want to help people have really tough conversations and know it's okay, and know that it will pass, and it usually does.
You know what, Ashlyn? If you ever need someone to work with you on any of this, or to speak, or whatever it may be, I'm always available. You know what?
Oh, I appreciate
yeah.
that.
I spend as you know, I'm sure you know, many in recovery spend time with other people, whether it be somebody in prison, young kids, whatever the case. We have a sort of a serious problem I live in Glen Rock, New Jersey, and as we're finding out, many of the athletes there are, opiates now with a big problem, and you see these kids, and I call them kids, they're juniors, seniors in high school, and they're stars on sports teams, yet, they've got this other thing going on in many instances. And so we're trying to figure out ways to get in and reach out to them. And we're going to go talk to some of them. And we're working with the police department to try to get in it, because the parents are always the last to know, it seems. They don't know. And maybe if they could see somebody else, whether it's somebody like you who is held in such high regard, or somebody like me who they don't know, but yet at the same time can just share their story and say, look, I was once a high school, baseball player. And, next thing I know, I found out when I found myself at the age of 40, an alcoholic and an addict. And, there is another way. It's
exactly.
Just it's great that you're doing that. I know you're not feeling well, so I'm just going to hit on a couple more things, and I'll let you get back to what you've got to do, which is, one of the things, again, it's all, of course, it's all about my daughter now, but I want to go back to, your coach right now is such a great guy, seems like to me, Tom Sermani. How important is it to playing for the right coach, and what does the right coach mean to you?
Well, I think for Tom, he has such a great balance of being very direct, but also being positive and approachable. He has a very good balance. He has an open door policy. You can come in at any time, and he makes himself very approachable, which I can really appreciate. But also, when you're not doing your job, you're going to hear it. And I think that's important to hold players accountable. And I value, his experience. He's been around this game for a really long time, and he's so even keeled. You don't hear him standing up and just howling the whole game and being he's not distracting from what we're doing. He gives us the tools to be successful, and then once we take the field, then it's in our hands. So I love those qualities about him. There's so many great qualities about him, and clearly that's why he's here coaching for such a great club. I would do anything for him. He rallies this team, and he does what he needs to do to make sure we'll run through a wall for him. So I value him so much, and I'm very happy that he's the coach of this team. Tom's a great coach.
You mentioned how competitive you are. What are some of the things you do outside of soccer, to get out there and compete and to push yourself?
I like to have a good balance. I love the ocean, so I'm constantly surfing. I love skateboarding. Sometimes I am super anxious, and when I get anxious, I just paint. And I really love the creative side of like anything artistic. So painting, drawing, designing clothes and chopping up clothes and making different things, just for my brain to kind of rest. It's hard in our world. even though you leave the field, it's hard to just turn it off. So those are the moments when I can kind of just escape and paint and listen to some music and calm down, or go to a coffee shop and just breathe a little bit.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This podcast is brought to you by Braintree. Having an up-to-date payment system is one of those things, like a rattle in your engine, that you might let slide to the bottom of the to-do list. Everything's working now, so you get to it when you get to it. But that's not necessarily a practical strategy. Leave it too long and you could be stranded on the side of the highway. And when we're talking about getting paid, you don't want to get stranded. It might not be a bad time to check in with Braintree and keep your business humming. Braintree, rethink payments. Find out more at braintreepayments.com/Forbes. And lastly, the finances of women's soccer, you mentioned how important this is, in terms of how well you do and earnings and your livelihood. Is the sport at the state now, where with the soccer league, do the women players still have to have other jobs, or is there enough money to be made just from playing soccer?
No, no, not even close. I mean, the salary numbers are out there, so it's no surprise. But the minimum, I believe, is $16,000 in 7 months, and then I think the salary cap for all players is a tad over. It's probably somewhere in the 220 range. I don't know. It's something around there. So clearly, it's better. Don't get me wrong, really happy that it's better, but it's not there yet. It's not going to happen overnight. These things just all of a sudden, you don't start making six figures overnight because you get a lifetime deal. But it's getting better, and it's a progression. And, the good thing is this is our 5th year in the league now. So, we're doing something right by keeping expenses low. Because if we start paying people too much, then clubs start taking giant hits. The reality is we do have to have other jobs. The reality is if I was a man and, I'm 31 now, if I were to retire at 35, if I was a male, I probably wouldn't have to worry about a job or what am I going to do next. For a female, that's not a luxury. As soon as I'm done, I'm going to have to figure out quickly what's my next job, what's going to pay my rent, what's going to pay my house, my bills, my food on my table. So hopefully in the next 10 years maybe that changes. I think there's been progress. It's not where it is. That's the reality of a female in today's society. I mean, we still make a lot less than a male, and we're trying to close that gap, but it's definitely not going to happen overnight. But the progression is there, and we're doing better, and we're taking the right steps. We're not skipping steps. So I'm hoping, in the next 10 years, maybe some of these young kids get to live out a profession where they spill their heart and their soul into it. And when they hit 35 or when they hit time to retire, they don't have to stress about what they're going to do next week.
I go back to the 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup, and the women's team won, the U.S., and the TV audience was over 25 million on Fox. And I remember thinking to myself at that time, okay, there was, it was the World Cup in the late 90s, and then I thought it was going to take off then, and then certainly in 2015. And I'm convinced that just like with certain sports here, like no one saw, for example, mixed martial arts taking off, and now Major League Soccer, the men's league is doing better. There's going to be a sponsor out there at some point who's going to take a chance and say, you know what, I'm going to sponsor a women's soccer player, and it's going to take off, and then it's going to really pick up for other women. Do you think that's the way it's going to go, or it's going to be more this continual slow grind?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think about it. I don't do it for the money. Clearly, I'm an educated woman with a great college degree. I could be doing well in other areas, but this is what I feel like I was born to do. And I think there's something to be said about that. A lot of these women do this because they love it, not because they have to, or not because they're told to, or not because they're just content. We do it because we love it, and we don't worry about, we'll find a way. We always do, right? I mean, women are strong, and I think this is part of it. You know, we love what we do, and we want to keep this going for the younger generation. And, you know, I don't know. I hope, clearly, I would love for someone to come knocking on my door saying they would pay me ridiculous amounts of money and it would help, you know, the league or help something. But at the end of the day, I don't think about that kind of stuff. I'm just here to do my job and be a good teammate and all those qualities that come with playing a team sport, you know, not so much individual stuff.
How do you make ends meet?
Well, I'm in a unique situation just because I'm contracted with the U.S. national team. So my paid scale is a little different than with the club. I'm actually not paid through the club.
I see. But for most others, they take on other jobs, so they're essentially having one job during the season and one. That seems really, really tough. And then lastly, you know, what's your take on where the national women's team is at this point?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of young talent rolling in. I'm excited for, you know, a lot of young players that are coming up and making a statement. And, you know, I'm sure, as everyone has heard, Mallory Pugh has left college. Well, she never really started it, but you know what I mean? So it's changing. The women's game is changing. A lot of young players are deciding to not go to college to play the game they love. And we have a lot of great young talent coming up. So the future's exciting. You know, we have time. We have a few years now until a major tournament, and we're just trying new things. I think that's what a lot of people are seeing, is a lot of different formations, a lot of different lineups, and a lot of different players. We're just deepening the pool, and that's just part of the process. When we get closer to tournament time, you know, everything starts to sharpen in and close off, and you focus on your starting 11 and, you know, that your game changers and all that kind of stuff. So right now we're just exploring and trying new things out. So there's some exciting stuff to be seen in the future and a lot of young talent.
What's the single thing you're most proud of at this point in your career?
Honestly, the impact I've made off the field. Yeah, that would be it. The impact. I get a lot of letters that I read, and, you know, just people being open and talking about, in some way or another, I've saved their life. And to me, that's the most powerful thing that anyone can tell me, is that something that I've done has changed or saved their life. So, yeah, you know, for me, trophies, they just get stored somewhere in the back closet of one of my rooms. But those letters are definitely something I hold on to and what I value most about what I do.
Is there any one letter you could share with us anything about?
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, just off the top of my head, I get them quite often, and people come up to me and share their story about how they've been struggling. And, you know, and from doing some type of interview or talking about something, some type of heavy topic, it's helped them seek help or talk to a friend, or, you know, there's so many different things. And so many different ages. I've had a woman come up to me in a restaurant who's, you know, 50 years old, saying, I was going through a really hard time and I watched one of your interviews and it saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ashlyn, you've been incredibly generous. You've had a great career, and from everything that I've read that talked about what a wonderful person you are, the taste of it I got through this discussion, it certainly is true. And my offer holds at any time. If you need me for anything on the addiction side, I'm always here for you.
All right. Thank you so much, and vice versa. And congratulations on your sobriety. I love hearing that.
Thanks, Ashlyn. Have a great afternoon.
All right. Have a good one.
That's it for this episode of Forbes Sports Money.